Alright guys, you guys may or may not have seen my previous video, my recent get, where I had picked up an SD2SNES, which is considered to be basically the Ferrari of flash carts for the Super Nintendo and the Super Famicom. So I've had a couple days to play around with it, and it's been a lot of fun. I've actually managed to mount it into a nice Super Nintendo shell, regular game case, just to protect it, because when you buy this thing, it's literally just a PCB and that's it. So put in this nice shell, and let me just say that peeling off these nice original Super Nintendo game labels is a real chore. A lot of Goo Gone goes into it. There's a lot of old 20-year-old adhesive that's stuck on here. Definitely not fun, but don't worry guys, this was not a Chrono Trigger or Secret of Mana or anything like that. This was Wayne's World. So I doubt anybody's going to miss this game, but I do still have the ROM. I'll probably just throw that into the parts bin or something like that. But anyway, here we have it, and I did have a couple issues when I first got this thing. The menu system was actually freezing up, and occasionally the games would lock up whenever I would initially load the games. Just navigating through the menu system would cause it to lock up, and I was really having a lot of trouble, and I tried many different things to try to figure out and isolate what the problem was. Long story short, what ended up happening is the firmware was the issue. I ended up downgrading the firmware from the current version that it had on it, which was the most current version. Downgraded it to the previous version, and it worked. Haven't had any problems since. So I'm sure I could bump it back up to the current version now. I'm sure that maybe the previous install was corrupt, but it's working now, so I don't really want to mess with it, to be honest with you. So let's plug it in and have a look. Now, I've got a mix of regular old games and demos and unlicensed games, so pretty good variety on here to show you guys. I guess we'll start with some of the unlicensed stuff. A couple of demos on here are pretty good. Now, while this is running, one of the things that really sets this cartridge apart from most flash cards is the fact that it has support for a lot of the additional add-on chips that were found inside of Super Nintendo games. For example, the Mega Man X games had a custom chip by Capcom that were in the cartridges. Super Mario Kart had a custom chip. Pilot Wings, there were a ton of games, and it has support for a large chunk of these. Now, I say a large chunk because there are a couple of very important ones that it does not support yet. That one of those being the Super FX, which is your Star Fox and your Stunt Race FX and Doom and a couple other games, Yoshi's Island. The other one being the SA1 chip, which is basically an additional processor that was found inside of the cartridge itself. It's actually a completely separate processor, which Super Mario RPG and Kirby's Dream Land 3, Kirby Superstar, I mean there's a huge list of games that use the SA1, which, to be honest, I'd be more excited to have SA1 support than Super FX, but fortunately I have the original cartridges of the SA1 based games that I enjoy playing, so not a big deal, but it would just be nice to have one central solution, all-encompassing solution that has support for all of the additional chips. So, but nevertheless, this thing works pretty well. I'll show you maybe a few more unlicensed games before I show off some of the special hardware support that's built into this. Now this one, I just found out about this game recently, so I'm pretty anxious to sink my teeth into it and give it a try. I've just kind of started playing with it some, but it'll be fun to go through and play this game, especially having been used to the certain way the levels were set up in the original Super Mario World. It's definitely thrown me off in some places. Yep, see? that's no good. Alright. So, I'll show you one of the Mega Man X3. I'll show you the Mega Man X3, which uses the Capcom CX4 chip, which I don't think any of the other Super Nintendo flash cards have support for. So, definitely cool. It's amazing how much work went into this thing. It's really really pretty awesome. I'm sure you guys have seen the intro. So as you can see, it works really well. In fact, playing the original cartridge versus this, I can't tell any difference. Now, I can understand some of you guys would want to have the original cartridge around, even if you have the flash cartridge, but for the sake of convenience, you can't really beat the SD2SNES. Well, anyway, so you guys can see how well this thing works. Reset it. A couple of things to show you in the menu. There's really not much else other than just the directories. If you hit the X button, it's battery backed. There's actually a battery in the cartridge itself. You can set the real-time clock. You can go look at the system information, which will tell you your firmware version, as well as your CPU, PPU 1 and 2 revision numbers, which CPU obviously is central processor. The two PPUs, there's actually two physical PPUs, or graphics chips basically, GPUs inside of the Super Nintendo. And they do have separate revision numbers. If you actually look at the chip itself, it will tell you what the revision number is, in most cases. So that's kind of a cool thing. Somebody threw that in there. I don't know if the information is really useful, but I really dig this thing. I had been waiting for a while to pick up an actual Super Nintendo flash card because so many of them lack support for the additional hardware found in a lot of the games. So you were really stuck. You were missing out on a lot of games. So I feel like the fact that this one has an FPGA, which is programmable, and through firmware updates they can add support for chips like the SA1 or the Super FX. I really think this is definitely the flash cartridge to get. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed watching, and leave some comments if you guys have one. I'd love to hear about what you think, and I'll try to mess around with this thing some more and put up some more videos rather soon.